and especially those who are very active in public diplomacy. I'm not ashamed to use the word hasbara. It's worked well up till now. I don't see why we should change it. Now, I've had some comments that they've appreciated what a wonderful conference this is, and you're absolutely right. But the people who are involved in hasbara, public diplomacy, are saying, why aren't we getting any guidelines or things? We know what the problem is, how to solve them. I believe on this panel, we're going to go ahead and do that. But before I introduce our participants here, I just want to give you my personal example of my method of public diplomacy. And as some of the previous speakers have indicated or hinted at, it shouldn't be one of a defensive mechanism. Ron Prosser, who was the British ambassador in Great Britain, now the Israeli ambassador in Great Britain, who is now the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, once said the problem with public diplomacy is we do it reactively, we do it defensively, and you can't win a game of football just simply playing defense. You've got to go out and attack and score goals. Right. Now, so my way of doing it, as other people have hinted at here, is not to talk so much about Israel, but to go on the attack and to delegitimize the delegitimizers. And also delegitimize the people who are sometimes called the useful idiots who support the message of the delegitimizers. And let me open by giving you just a little part of an article I'm working on with some personal comments that affect some people here in the audience today. All the world's a stage, and the name of the play is Delegitimization. And the cast is made up of some very bad characters. The theme of the play is one of victimization in the public arena of one character, Israel. The play is being performed at theatres from the United Nations to the campuses and universities on pantomimes like Israel Apartheid Week. It takes place on ships in the Gaza Flotilla and at airports, as we're experiencing here as we speak. This play will be performed in 2 weeks' time on perhaps the most famous stage in history, the Globe Theatre in London, where Habima, Israel's national theatre company, will attempt to perform William Shakespeare's play, The Merchant of Venice, in Hebrew at an international Shakespeare Festival. What greater ironic metaphor can you have than a company representing the Jewish state being pilloried and abused while trying to perform a play about a Jew who is pilloried and abused and banished from Shakespeare's stage. Like Shylock, the Habima Theatre Company, and through them Israel, the Jew among nations, will become the pariah on a stage that will warmly welcome performers from human rights abusing states such as China, Turkey, Zimbabwe, and Bangladesh, who are all participating in the Shakespeare Festival. The attack on Habima came about because of a letter that appeared in the Guardian newspaper signed by luminaries of the British theatre, including Emma Thompson and Leigh, protesting against the appearance of Habima at this festival. It will be taken up by the Palestine Solidarity Movement, the BDS movement, and others who will doubtless demonstrate and ruin the performance of our leading theatre company. These theatrical lovies in London will certainly attend and applaud the performances of the Palestinian theatre group, overlooking the terror, the suicide bombers, and the rockets perpetrated from Palestinian territories onto Israeli civilian populations. Recently, Dr. David Altman, the senior vice chairman of the Netanya College, wrote a book called 6 Years Later. This book foretold of a Britain hijacked by radical forces, aided and abetted by misguided, enthusiastic, intellectual elite. Correct, David?
Absolutely.
It seems, David, that your prediction is coming true. In my book, Israel Reclaiming the Narrative, Booker Prize winner Howard Jacobson addresses the assault on Israel's legitimacy from the British campus, calling it the closing of the academic mind. David, Howard Jacobson agrees with you. The actions of Emma Thompson's and the Mike Leighs ensure the closing of the cultural mind in Britain. It says more about them than it says about us. I suggest, David, that you write a new book. A book that portrays a mad world of extremists, racists, murdering, human rights abusers, who collectively, in a world body which they hold a majority vote, demonize and delegitimize a tiny country and falsely accuse that country of practicing an apartheid that exceeds the apartheid of South Africa, of being more fascist than the fascists, of being more Nazi than the Nazis, and guilty of every sin against humanity, and doubtless one or two we haven't discovered yet. Yet, hiding the enormity of their own crimes. But I suppose, David, that the reading public would find this fiction so totally unbelievable they wouldn't buy the book yet. And you now know that it isn't a fiction. This is the reality in which Israel finds itself. In what furnace of the mind is this nation forged? A nation more evil than any other, that closely resembles the isolated version of the pariah Jew as it appears in the medieval imagination. This is no country that ever was. So let them tell us that Jew-hating is not at the deep heart of it. In the end, it's not about Israel or Jews at all. It's about the way they practice thought in the Western world, including Britain. I recommend we change the name of the play from delegitimization to hypocrisy. And you, from the Israeli government to the NGOs, and yes, all of you here in the hall today must help rewrite that script. A script that does not necessarily include Israel in the central role, but instead indicts and accuses the perpetrators of the biggest fraud crime in recent political history. To quote Shakespeare, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That is the way you attack the people who attack Israel, by exposing their lies, exposing their fraud, and exposing their hypocrisy. So the title of our panel today is quite fitting. It's Strategies for Countering Delegitimization and for Shaping Public Perceptions. I'm delighted to tell you we've got an all-star cast here on this particular stage. And let me begin by introducing Major General Eitan Dangot. Major General Eitan Dangot is the coordinator of the government activities in the territories. He has served in a number of key positions in the IDF, including head of the Strategic Planning Division of the IDF Planning Directorate. He was the Home Front Commander Executive Officer and Military Secretary of the Ministry of Defense. He holds a BA in Computer Science and Economics at Bar-Ilan University. Major General Dangot, the floor is yours. Toda.